Hello there, I'm glad you decided to join me on this small quest. Now today is something a little different as I'm normally talking about games on this channel. However, today I've decided to talk about some hardware I picked up recently. Now this isn't going to be a typical review where we talk about specs, benchmarks and things like that. What I want to do today is discuss what it's been like owning this piece of hardware and let you guys know if I feel it was worth the money I spent on it. So let's have a chat about the Steam Deck from Valve, and for those of you who might not be aware what it is, let me give you a quick rundown. The Steam Deck is a handheld gaming computer which was released on February 25th, 2022. This was essentially Valve's answer to the very popular Nintendo Switch. However, where this differed to the Switch is that it's backed by Valve's Steam ecosystem. Essentially, games from your ever-growing Steam library could now be taken on the go. Games like Marvel's Spider-Man, God of War, Grand Theft Auto, The Witcher, and many more big AAA titles could be played away from the gaming PC. Another interesting aspect to this is the ability to enter desktop mode, which is giving you the ability to use the deck as essentially a portable PC. Does the Steam Deck deliver on what was promised, or is it destined to meet the same fate as Valve's previous hardware attempts? So I'm sure the first question on your mind is, why did I purchase the Steam Deck? I've got a pretty good desktop PC which I've managed to play some intense games on, so why would I look to buy something like this? I felt it would give me more options when wanting to play a game, so rather than being in my office constantly when I want to play games, I could play wherever I wanted. Another big factor is that this room is my office for my day job. When my day job would be over and I'd want to play some games, I'd need to come back in here. Now, as much as I love hanging out in here, when you've done a full day's work, you want to get out of here as quick as you can. Plus, as I work from home, I would find I'd walk in here with intentions of gaming, and I'd think, oh, I'll just check my work emails quickly. Then my entire evening of gaming would be swept away as I'd be wrapped up in work stuff. I'm sure if some of you work from home, you'll be nodding your head in agreement as, let's be honest, we all do it. My next step really, like most big purchases I make, is to do my research. If you're considering getting a Steam Deck, I would highly suggest you do the same, as I felt doing my research really set my expectations of the handheld. I think a lot of people going into the Steam Deck think every single game will run flawlessly as long as it's on Steam. However, that is not the case. There are things I do before making a purchase on Steam, which I'll detail later. I spent hours watching videos and such on YouTube to get an idea on what it can do. My curiosity was piqued, and then I decided to throw a chunk of change down on the middle tier model, which is the 256GB version. It took about a week or so for the device to arrive, and once I got it in my hands, I thought my first game needs to be something I know well. That way I'd notice if things weren't performing well due to the hardware. So I installed Journey, booted it up on the deck, and the moment the game started and I could see the detail in the sand, I was blown away. I honestly couldn't believe that I was playing Journey on a handheld, and it looked as good as it did. I expected frame rate drops and things like that, but nothing. The game ran buttery smooth and I had a wonderful experience playing through one of my favourite games. However, I do understand that this is a game that was released in 2012 and ported in 2020. In theory, a game that old should run well, so I decided to check out a more modern title that I knew well, but should be a little more taxing on the deck, and that is The Pathless. Now this brings me back nicely to the research I mentioned earlier in the video. One thing that was mentioned time and time again when it comes to choosing a game to play on the deck was the Steam Deck compatibility, which is listed on every single game's page on Steam. This is Valve's way of saying what the experience should be like on the deck. This is broken into 4 compatibility ratings which are verified, and this means the game has passed all of Valve's checks and shouldn't need any adjustments to get the game to run. Playable, this is where the game will run but requires the user to make some adjustments like controller settings or graphics. Unsupported is what it sounds like, the game will not run on deck. And finally we have Unknown, which is where Valve has not been able to review the game as of yet. As good as this is, there is a website which is better for listing Steam Deck compatibility, and that is ProtonDB. This is a website where users write their first-hand experiences of playing games on the deck. They also have their own ranking system of 5 tiers, which starts with Platinum, which means the game will run perfectly with no tweaks, Gold runs perfectly after a tweak, Silver runs with minor issues but is generally playable, Bronze runs but crashes, so not a comfortable experience. And finally, balked, which just won't play. So going back to the Pathless, on Steam it's listed as playable, which means it might need to make some changes after install. However, I checked ProtonDB and it had a platinum rating, so no tweaks needed. With that in mind, I installed the Pathless and once again was blown away by the experience. Once again, I had the moment of not believing I was playing this game on a handheld. Now I know the Pathless is available on Switch, but I've not had the chance to experience that version. With 2 games under my belt, I was pretty sold on the deck. I also noticed one of my goals was starting to become reality, which I mentioned earlier in the video. My evenings where I wanted to spend time gaming was not being taken over by work. I'd finish my day job, put my daughter to bed, pick up the deck and get gaming. If I'm honest, I have played and completed so many games over the past few weeks of owning the deck. This is down to me being able to play wherever I am. For example, with our daughter, we're trying to get her to go to sleep on her own. So every night, me or my partner will sit outside her room to make sure she goes to sleep. So when it's my turn and I'm sat there waiting, I've got the Steam Deck and I get some gaming done. My partner and I went on holiday recently to a lodge in the woods. I took the deck with me, and when we had some downtime, I would play whatever game I was working through. In terms of games I've been playing on the deck, if I'm honest, I've not delved into the world of AAA games like the ones mentioned at the start of the video. I've mostly been playing smaller experiences, and to be honest, the smaller experiences are the type of games I tend to gravitate towards. So games like Beacon Pines, Omno, Night in the Woods, Short Hike, Coffee Talk are just some of the games I've been able to play on this. However, I did throw a curveball in by finally playing through Fable Anniversary, and it ran perfectly on the deck. If AAA gaming is something you want to do, I would highly suggest going to ProtonDB before purchasing and search for the games that you want to play. Then see what the rating is on there and what suggestions, if any, to get the game running. Okay, a little honesty now, I have experienced some issues when playing on deck, which include things like randomly if I pause a game, then come back to it, I'll try to move my character on screen and they just won't move. I found to fix this by pressing the Steam button to bring up the Steam menu and then press it again, which takes you back to the game, and hey presto, everything works. I also tried a game which wasn't tested on ProtonDB and it crashed. However, that is on me as I was trying something blind. I will say with the Steam Deck there is a wonderful community around it, particularly on Reddit, so I've finally got a Reddit account. I found most things I've come across when using the deck that has hindered me. I do a quick search on the Steam Deck Reddit and I find someone with the same problem and a fix is there. So never fear if you find an issue when playing a game, as I guarantee someone has experienced the same thing. Now, a final thing I want to quickly mention before we wrap up is desktop mode and plugins. If you want to play around with desktop mode, I would highly suggest using a keyboard and mouse. It can be a little bit awkward to use desktop mode with the deck. But what I've done is I've installed AnyDesk, which can be found on a Discovery store on the deck. Then load up AnyDesk on my PC and deck and remote into the deck. Then I can use my PC's keyboard and mouse to control. With the desktop mode comes plugins. These are things you can install in desktop mode to make changes to the deck. I've not delved too much into this, but there are 2 I've got loaded up at the moment, which are Proton Up QT and Decky Loader. Proton Up QT is a way for you to install the latest version of Proton to the Steam Deck. Proton is essentially Valve's compatibility layer for PC games to be able to run in the Linux operating system. Proton has been updated regularly for new games coming out, so when you're trying to run a certain game on deck, it may want a particular version of Proton to run best. I won't go through how to install Proton Up as there's loads of videos on YouTube about this. However, I would suggest getting this installed. Once it's installed and you have the versions of Proton enabled in the app, when in gaming mode on the deck, pick the game you want to play, go into the settings of the game and there's a compatibility option. Once in there, you can select the version of Proton you want to use. Think of it as the compatibility options you get in Windows for apps. As a rule of thumb for me, I put the latest version of Proton for every game I want to play. That way I know it's going to be using the latest compatibility layer. As mentioned previously, the other plugin I use is Decky Loader. This is a plugin launcher for the Steam Deck. The community has made so many plugins and this is an easy way to run them all. Again, check YouTube for any guides on how to install and run Decky Loader. There are loads of plugins to choose from, and the ones I have on my Steam Deck are HLTB for Deck. This pulls data from the How Long to Beat website, so you can see how long games in your Steam Deck will take to beat. CSS Loader is essentially a theme installer, so you can change the look of the Steam Deck menus. Steam Grid DB lets you add artwork to any non-Steam applications you may have installed, like Moonlight Game Streaming, which I have installed. Finally, ProtonDB Badges pulls data from ProtonDB, which I mentioned earlier, so you can see the rating directly on your deck. You can go down a huge rabbit hole when it comes to plugins for the deck. If you want to know more about plugins, be sure to go through the many videos on YouTube. However, I felt like I didn't need loads of plugins, I just wanted to keep things simple. With that, I think it's time we answer the question from the start of the video. Do I feel the Steam Deck is worth the money I put down for it? This is a definite yes from me. It's pretty much met the standards I expected for the unit, and if I'm being completely honest, when I want a game, the Steam Deck is what I want to play on. I thought this would be a fun companion to my PC and consoles when I initially bought it. However, like said, this has become my main gaming machine. My partner recently tried the system and she has also fallen in love with it, to the point where the thought of getting her own has crossed her mind. I will say this is a machine that's perfect for people who don't mind having to make tweaks and such. As said earlier, you may need to change settings and things like that when wanting to play certain games. Like said earlier, if you're on the fence about the deck, I would highly suggest doing your research like I did before purchasing. If you do purchase and you know what you're getting into, then I guarantee you'll have a great time. So a much longer video than usual comes to a close, and if you're currently looking into getting a Steam Deck, I hope this has helped you out in making your decision. If you're one of those folks considering getting a deck, then let me know in the comments. If you have a deck, let me know your favourite game to play on it in the comments. If you enjoyed this video or it helped you out today, then show me your thumbs by giving the video a thumbs up. Feel free to press the subscribe and notification bell so you'll know when a new video goes live or when I'm live streaming. Thank you for watching. If you want a great game to play on the Steam Deck, then check out this video where I check out the demo for the upcoming Cyberpunk mystery 1000X Resist. Thank you for watching and I'll see you on the next quest.